Welcome to the Advice Stream, everybody. I'm your host, JeremyInternational. The Advice Stream is the only stream, maybe, where we play old video games and we dish advice. If you'd like to seek advice during this episode of the Advice Stream, make sure you head on over to JeremyInternational.com. There's a contact form you can reach at the bottom of the screen where you can send in questions. I have many prepared from the internet today that we'll get to. Today's agenda, we will be joined by Oldmin very soon, so don't you worry. And then we are going to continue to delve into the Sega Genesis catalog with a game called Haunting, what's it called? Starring Poltergeist, I think. This is a game that everyone says is really great. As usual, I have never played it. But you're like a ghost and you can go around and like possess things and control things, and it sounds like it's super fun. My initial plan was to play the Beavis and Butthead game, but I can't get it to work. One of the dangers of buying old video games is sometimes you get one that's a bust. But we do have Haunting starring Poltergeist that we'll be checking out, and I got a couple other laying around in case we get bored with that one, but it looks real good. I don't think we're gonna get bored. So yeah, I hope everyone's doing okay. We got some folks on Twitch. Normie's there. Normie, aka Oldman, is there. I'm gonna get you on here in just a second. Here, Oldman. Just need a little sip of my once a week bourbon. I poured myself too much bourbon tonight. So what do? You pour that back in the bottle? I don't know what you do. I'll just drink it slowly. Let's bring on Oldman. Hold on.
Hello.
Hey, Oldman, how's it been?
It's okay. And now I'm just realizing you can see my collection of empty jewel pods over here. So I'm just going to put those back in the ashtray.
That's Jewel is not an unofficial sponsor, or an official sponsor for that matter, of the Advice Stream. But you do you, boo. What's new?
There's really no reason for me to put jewel pods in an ashtray. Now that I have mentioned that out loud, it seems kind of silly.
Well, it's like that's an example of what's it called when a piece of new technology comes out, but it's designed to mimic the old thing? Like you buy a Kindle, an ebook reader, but you put it into things so you still open it up like a book, but you don't need to do that, but people do it because it feels skeuomorphic,
maybe
something like that. Yeah, that's what.
Thanks for giving me the beginning, because I would not have thought of that word unless you'd had the very start of the word.
We haven't talked in a while. I was out last week. I drove down to my hometown and stayed with my parents with my daughter for a week. And we talk about Jeopardy a lot on the show. Jeopardy is a big deal in my family, and it's the Tournament of Champions, so it's like extra hard Jeopardy. And so watching that every night with my parents and my sister was a blast. And it's nothing like the Tournament of Champions to remind you that you're not as good at Jeopardy as you think you are. Because I feel like on an average Jeopardy, I can get, let's say, a little bit, maybe like 60% of the questions right on average. And I got maybe 10% of these.
I mean, we have been practicing.
We have been practicing. And in case if we get bored by Haunting starring Poltergeist, then I got the old standard Jeopardy for the Sega Genesis on standby. I also have, so in addition to Haunting starring Poltergeist, because you have to say the whole thing every time, I also have this Buck Rogers game for the Sega. I think this is like a real-time strategy game. I've also heard really good things about it. Never played it, never tested it to see if it works, of course, because I'm an idiot. But I want to try out Poltergeist, I really do. But if we get bored by that, or if it's not as cool as everyone says it is, we can switch over to that. Can I show you something really cool I bought? I've been saying a lot. I'm a little tight on money these days, so I'm not spending a lot of money on video games. But I heard about this, and I went on eBay and found it. This is item you get in a Happy Meal at a Chinese McDonald's, and it is Tetris, but it's shaped like a chicken nugget.
That's cute.
Isn't that adorable? And it's the
Yeah.
best shaped chicken nugget. It's the boot. Because we all know that McDonald's, the chicken McNuggets have like, what, 3 shapes? And the boot is the best one. Everyone knows.
I feel like your little one might actually enjoy that. If I don't know if she's capable of playing Tetris
I don't think she's
at this
ready
point,
for Tetris. And this is like real, like the buttons are real hit and miss. It's real wiggly. So I don't know if that's the best way to introduce her to Tetris.
as we both know, your daughter hates it when controls are a little bit wiggly,
Yeah,
and the
have
joysticks are a little bit
yeah.
off. Yeah, right. Big COD fan in your
Yeah.
household.
What else was going on that was cool? So when I go to my hometown, there's a bourbon distillery down there, which is super fun. And you go, and I went with my sister, and I got a flight of their different bourbons to try. And you want a snack as you want to eat something while you're there. And they have like a little snack menu. And every time I've been there, they never have almost anything on the snack menu. They don't have like a kitchen, so it's all like pre-made stuff. But they always have peanuts. When you order the peanut snack, they give you a whole can of these salted peanuts, and they're so good, and they're the perfect thing to eat while you're.
So it was just you and your daughter on the trip? Yeah. Freddie got a moment for herself?
Yep, Freddie got almost 5 days in the house on her own. I get that every once in a while, Freddie takes our daughter with Freddie's mom, and they go on a trip for a little while, and it's really nice,
It's important, yeah.
When they're gone, I miss them a lot, and I'm sure she missed us a lot when we were gone. But it's also really nice to have the house to yourself for a little bit.
Yeah.
So
and to remind yourself that you missed that thing.
Yeah, it's important to miss people from time to time. So that was really nice. I'm certainly glad to be back, but it was a really, really cool trip.
I'm glad. I didn't know whether it was like someone's having trouble with your parents and your family, or whether it was like an enjoyable trip. That's why I asked you.
Yeah.
I was like kind of hedging it when I messaged you. I was like, oh, I hope it's a good trip. And if it's not, but if it is.
I mean, nothing's fine because of the world, but everything's fine enough. There's no particular emergency or crisis this time.
That's good.
Yeah, it was really cool. My parents got, for her birthday, which was a few months ago, my parents got my daughter, she's 4, a little digital camera. So she's gotten really into taking snapshots and then wanting to show everyone her pictures afterwards, which is real cute.
Yeah, that's super cute.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're at the show. This is the show. I hope everyone's having a good time. We got some people following along on Twitch. If you haven't jumped in and said hi, you should. There is no one watching on YouTube, of course. We are live on Twitch. We are live on YouTube. Historically, the advice stream has also been on Facebook, but Facebook has changed the rules, and now they don't want a show like this there anymore, so we don't do Facebook anymore. So Twitch and YouTube is where it's at. Tell your friends, tell your moms to come by and check out the show. We have lots of questions. I don't know if you brought any questions today, Oldman, but I have a few questions.
Not today.
But if you would like to seek advice during this show, and we always discuss as a community, then you can always put it right in the chat if you don't want to be anonymous. But if you do want to be anonymous, you can head on over to JeremyInternational.com and use the contact form at the bottom to send in a question. Additionally, there you can volunteer to leave a tip if you enjoyed the show. I'm going to try to be, no one's ever done that before. I'm going to try to be a little bit more direct about that, just because my discretionary funds are shrinking, and if we want to keep getting new games, I got to find another way to make money. So if you're enjoying the show and you want to drop in even $1 or $2, I'll take it. And I will use that money if you leave $1 or $2, I'll have to save up. But I'll use that money towards buying new games to play. Not that I'm going to run out of games anytime soon. I have so many. Why don't we start with a question, and then we're going to get into Haunting starring I almost said Haunting starring Oldman, starring Poltergeist.
Well, you don't know. I might be Poltergeist.
Oldman Poltergeist. Nice to meet you. Is that Polish? Okay. Question number 1. Hold on. Okay. I met the woman I thought I'd spend my life with, and we were together for 4 years. As we got older and her extended family died and we started talking about kids, she became much more religious. Her religion passes through the maternal line. And so she says it's very important for her as part of the family. She eventually gave me an ultimatum: convert or break up. I love her, but I'm an atheist, and the best I would be able to do is lie my way through, which is a bad foundation for a marriage. We broke up and it's been 2 years, but I still miss her. Recently, she reached out and said she changed her mind and wants to try again. I don't have to convert. I don't even know how to start thinking about this. What should I do?
Oh boy. Well, we know what this is about. I mean, like, how many religions are there out there with a maternal line like that is specifically tied to your genetics? There's very few.
There's very few.
Maybe just one.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, maybe does Zoroastrianism work that way? I don't know.
I don't think so, but I don't know a lot about it.
You know, I'm an atheist, and my partner is an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
My life has changed dramatically in the last few years. Kind of similar. We've had a kid. There's been a lot of death in my family. And sometimes I kind of feel this little pull to believe in something, not because I've experienced anything that makes me want to believe, but just because I want to believe, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And that's not really a foundation, I don't think, for religious belief. But, you know, I know lots of stories of people that got married or got serious dating, and then they didn't have, neither of them had any relationship with faith at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but then someone did. And in my experience, that almost always sinks the relationship for good.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a little different. And certainly, if we're talking about Judaism, and I think we are, it certainly would be inconvenient, but not ultimately problematic for him to not convert.
Right.
They could still raise their kids as Jewish as they wanted to, but of course he needs to be comfortable with that too.
Yeah.
You know, there are people that are atheists that are cool. Like I'm one of those, I think, that are cool with religion. I have a lot of respect for religion. I grew up very religious, and you know, for people that I think are consistent with their religious beliefs and don't force them on other people, then I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. And I think I could be cool with being in a partnership with someone that wanted to lean into religion in this way if it was really important for them to do it. And me not follow them through that.
Yeah. I think that would have that makes complete sense to me. From what I know about conversion to Judaism, it is a very long and involved process for a Gentile to do that.
Well, it depends. With Judaism, there's no like governing body. So some communities make it really, really hard. Some communities kind of pretend to make it hard, but don't actually make it particularly challenging. So it depends on how difficult the process is. But it's always a process. It's never, hey, yeah, come swing on by the synagogue today and we'll convert you. Like, it's never going to be like that.
Right. You're not just going to go into the house and everybody's going to be like, Mazel Tov, you're a Jew now.
Yeah. There's always going to be something.
Yeah. But I totally agree with you. This is not completely related and perhaps a little too personal, but we only have 2 viewers now, and I think it might be me and you, so I'll just say it.
Let's go for it.
I went on a date yesterday with a very nice lady who is the editor of a Christian magazine. And it didn't work out. Like, she pretty much instantly said, no, thank you. You're very nice. I had a good time. No, thank you.
Yeah.
But in our conversation leading up to the date, it was something that I thought about, the fact that I don't subscribe to a particular religion. I've certainly gotten softer since my predictable new atheist phase in the mid to late 2000s.
Right. The mid to late 2000s, when like everyone was like atheist and mean about it.
Right.
I was
That
certainly one of
I've
those too.
long ago softened on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
topic.
Same. Big same.
And we had a lot of really interesting conversations, and it's a bit of a shame. I'm not heartbroken or anything, because I could tell, but it was a little bit of a shame because we had some really, really interesting chats about philosophy and religion,
Yeah.
and the fact that I have adopted some of these weird, not weird, but like there's a little bit of new aginess in me at this point in my life that wasn't there before.
A little bit of
Um,
woo.
a little bit of woo.
Yeah, just a
We're
little
all
bit.
one. There's a cosmic consciousness, all that boring stuff.
Wow.
Um,
You still think the
but
world is round though, right? You're not switching over to being a flat earther.
well, it's a donut actually.
Oh,
That's where I've landed
okay.
eventually. It's a donut. Taurus actually is the preferred term. But no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, it wasn't like as severe as our letter writer's situation. Obviously, it's a first date with somebody,
Yeah.
but it was something that I had thought about as a possible blockage, or something that would make it so we couldn't connect. And maybe I was right. Maybe I was right. Maybe I was wrong. I don't know.
Well,
But
it's one of. By the way, good morning. From good morning in Australia, Jugsy. Thanks for joining the show. Thanks for saying hi. If you're just joining us, we're going over a question from the internet. Letter writer was with their partner. They never got married, but they were talking about it. They were together for 4 years. The partner had some life changing personal events happen. They decided to embrace the religion of their childhood. They gave the letter writer an ultimatum: convert or our relationship is over. He didn't want to convert because he felt like that was dishonest. So the relationship is over. And 2 years went by, and now the partners reached out and said they're still embracing their religion, but he does not have to convert, and that they'd like them to come back. So, we a couple other things to talk about before we really get into answering this person's question, I think, is these are the types of questions I feel like people don't spend enough time thinking about when they're looking to find a relationship. Is where do you land on religion? And a lot of people can answer what they believe or don't believe in for themselves, but then what are you prepared to accept and to try to understand in a partner? I think is one of those things. Remember, we talk about this all the time, that uh, whether you're married or not, whether you're going to get married or not, or whether you're just committing, for the long haul with someone, you're agreeing to change with that person. And one of the ways that people can potentially change is they can go from a place of no faith to a place of having faith, or vice versa. And that can often, but doesn't have to be, I think, is what we're talking about, a relationship ender. Jugsy says
mm-hmm.
ultimatum equals game over for me, but who knows their situation. Generally speaking, I
Yeah.
think ultimatums are, I agree, are bad news. However, if there is something that becomes a deal breaker for you, then you need to be able to communicate, hey, this is something that I need to have in a partner. And if you're not able to deliver that, then that's your choice to make. That's great for you. But that means I need to go on. I don't want to waste your time or my time. I need to go on and find somebody that's aligned with my values. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the type of situation where an ultimatum, maybe the term ultimatum is extreme in that context, but it is. I
This
think
is
it's a.
what exactly, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt,
No,
but
that's okay. Go ahead.
what I'm thinking now that we're talking a little bit more about it is, okay, yeah, the word ultimatum is used in this letter, and also at the same time he's saying he needs to come back. What does that mean exactly? Like, did he leave his ex partner because of this. So like, it's hard for me to envision how the conversation went. That's what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me from the letter that I'm assuming the letter writer is a male person and the
Hmm.
partner in
Me too.
question is
Yeah.
a female person. That I'm just getting that from context. Might not be the case, but it probably is. It seems to me that she said, "I need you uh, to adopt. I can't be with a person that doesn't share my religious beliefs." And he said, "I can't share your religious beliefs." So then they broke up. But the important part of this question is 2 years pass. Then she comes back and says, "Hey, I've I don't need you to convert anymore. I miss you. I want you back as a partner." And
Hmm.
that's really the question: is how should he proceed? I have really strong thoughts on that as well. But if you have something to share, Oldman, I'd love to hear it.
No, I'm not sure I have strong thoughts. So please go ahead.
The I guess this goes back is that being being in love means agreeing to change, or at least to support someone as they change. She changed and then she changed it again. She still has these religious views, but she doesn't need to share them with the letter writer. If he loves her still and wants her back, she's wants him back. And I think that there's no better reason to get back with someone than that. Real love is rare and it's hard. And if you find it, it's worth working on if you have it in you to work on it. And if this is the religion we're thinking it is, there's he needs to be open, he needs to be patient, he needs to be at least ready to contribute to some of the social and cultural parts. But he doesn't. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. So, like I was saying, I'm I'm an atheist. I was raised as a religious Jewish person. Fred Undead, my partner, it was raised Catholic, but is also an atheist. There are lots of Jewish traditions that we follow and observe that don't have anything to do with God. Hanukkah is a political holiday. It's always been a political holiday.
Hmm.
Holidays like Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur are just as much about introspection and thinking about your own personal growth as it is asking God for forgiveness or whatever. So you can participate and observe a lot of these things. Most religions, I suspect, work this way without having to believe in any kind of godly or supernatural or whatever aspect of it. And if he wants to be with this woman who's religiously Jewish, and if they want to have kids together and raise those kids religiously Jewish, I think that there is a pathway for him to fully participate in all of those cyclical events and not have to do so in a spiritual matter, but more in a psychological or an emotional manner. That's how I interact with the traditions from my childhood these days, and it works really, really well for atheist me and atheist my partner who never grew up Jewish, anyways. So there is a pathway to do this. I would also say if he wants to continue to be an atheist, but he wants to follow along with, once again, what I'm assuming the letter doesn't say, but I'm assuming is a Jewish culture. There are, I'm not going to say lots and lots of, but there are lots of secular humanist Jewish communities.
Yeah, it's like really well known that that's a thing, and
Yeah.
it's like a pretty prominent strain of Judaism, as
And
far as I know. Like,
he he
you know,
he might want to tap into one of those. They're not going to ask him to go through a conversion process because that's not how
mhm.
those communities work. Or maybe there is a conversion process, but it won't be a conversion process that causes him to have to compromise on his atheism. And
Right.
try to find some common ground there with, like what one of the things, especially when you have kids, one of the things that's really valuable from a religious tradition is the cycle of the year. And this is when we do this, and this is when
Hmm.
we do that, and this is
Yeah.
when we come together, and this is why we do it. And that why, at least, I'm not going to speak for anybody else's religion except for the one I grew up in. That why we do it does not have to be um, spiritual in any way, and it's not for me. But that cycle of the year is as important to me now as it was when I was a person of faith, for
Mhm.
similar but ultimately different reasons.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I'm not attached to any specific religion, and I don't think I ever will be, probably at this point. But marking the passage of the year is still a nice thing to do. I do it through All I Want for Christmas Is You mostly,
Uh-huh.
but
I So for some reason it showed up in my YouTube feed, this video about the history of the it's 12 Days of Christmas. That's the song, right? On the first day,
I
blah blah
get,
blah.
yeah, that's right,
And
that's right.
how the joke is that there's a lot of birds in that song that are given as
There are
gifts.
a lot
But
of
what this
birds in that
video was
song.
saying is there's a lot of things in that song that to our modern ears don't sound like a bird, but are also
Hmm.
birds. And that the song is almost all about birds, giving birds as gifts,
That's
which I thought
hilarious.
was really like the partridge in a pear tree. Partridge we all know is a bird, but in
Hmm.
the historical context of the song, the audience to when the song was written would have also heard pear tree as another kind of bird.
Wow. So it's two gifts in one. How wonderful.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of birds. Don't give people birds. Don't give people live animals as gifts. I think is a good lesson that I've learned.
I have a question for you, and this I don't mean this to be explosive or anything, and I don't. It's hopefully won't go that way. But how do you feel about the fact that he? Okay, we can agree this is probably a Jewish person with a non-Jewish person.
Let's assume
How
that
do
it
you
is.
feel? Yeah, I think that that's a safe assumption.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that he obscured it and tried to use like a euphemism about it? Like the fact
Um,
that he said, "Oh, well, it's passed through the maternal line," but he wasn't willing to say my ex girlfriend, ex wife is Jewish.
That doesn't bother me. I feel like I've got extra sensitive anti-Semitic sensors on these days, and that
Right.
doesn't bother me.
No, I wasn't even saying that. It's like it's just the reluctance to mention it is kind of
Yeah.
strange to me. I don't know.
Well, I for reasons we're not going to get into, at least on this episode of the Advice Stream, I think that anti-Semitism is up. It's back in fashion in a lot of parts of the world, including the United
Yeah,
States these
good
days.
point.
And maybe
Yeah, I
he
mean,
was thinking
you're
if
right.
we said that, people would be less empathetic to answering his question. I don't know.
Or maybe he thought like, oh, if somebody reads this, they'll and they have the wrong types of values. They might say, oh, well, this guy's B word ex wife or ex girlfriend, et cetera, who's
Yeah, yeah.
Jewish, and it's connected to that. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. And people, I think a lot of times when they're writing these questions, their desire to remain anonymous sometimes gets a little overboard, and they obscure
Yes,
things that they don't need to be obscuring.
definitely.
I
I
think happens a
definitely
lot.
have seen that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I thought that was an interesting one, but if that person was listening, I would tell them that she wants you back. The decision you have to make is if you want her back in your life,
Hmm.
if you want to pick up that relationship and try to salvage salvage it and build for the future. I think you should if you want to. The real question is, do you want to? But if you
Two
want
years is a
to,
long time.
yeah, 2 years is a long time. But if he wants her back, he should take her back. People change, people learn. One of the things that um I was done talking about this letter, but I'm going to say something else because I think this is helpful. When I got married, my dad, who's a very smart, very educated person, who has lots of little sound bites of advice that I think he means he means to be helpful and also a little bit funny at the same time. The advice he gave me is that the key to a happy marriage is compromise. And you know that you've reached compromise when both parties are equally miserable. Compromise, if you're trying to find a way where everybody's happy, that's not always possible because someone's got to not get what they want. But if you try to go for a situation where no one is more upset than the other person with the solution, then that's a recipe for success. And like I was saying, that I think he meant to be 50% funny and 50% helpful with that. I've thought about that a lot, and I used to think that was 100% really good advice. But really, compromise isn't the way to go. It's collaboration. And if you're going to really make a relationship work with someone for a long period of time, thinking of compromise, I think, implies struggle. I think it implies an amount of strife that maybe is there and maybe is unavoidable, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes you just need to find a way to work together to find a solution instead of working against each other to find something that only kind of sort of works for everybody. The end result's probably the same, but the way you go into your mindset when you go into trying to fix an issue in a relationship matters. And I think that while the reality is oftentimes a level of compromise, I think the better mindset to go into is collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Should we, Oldman, do you want to check out Haunting starring Poltergeist?
Yeah, let's see if he looks like me.
This game looks really rad. Okay. This is, do we have a year? I don't know. Let me bring the volume up a little bit. One thing.
Oh my goodness. That's exactly how I dance.
Volume's really low for some reason. Man, I'm really loving some Sega Genesis these days, though. I will tell you. I don't know what any of that is.
This looks great. That is the weirdest, like, just standing there, not doing anything animation. It's There's so much going on. He's doing so much while just standing in place.
Okay, so I'm moving around, and when I get close to some things, there's a blue thing. What happens if I hit A?
Okay.
And if I use oh.
Oh my goodness.
What did I do?
What?
To escape, pick up the ecto drops.
Did you get caught in the couch cushions?
I think I fell into the couch. Whoa. Okay, I'm already this is why I should, I need to be better at looking up games before I play them on this, because I don't know what I'm doing.
I mean, it's a long-standing tradition on this show by now.
Yeah, I know.
That you don't play the games at all.
And this is a Lucy, so I don't have the manual or anything to look at.
Mm-hmm.
The controls are real slippery. Here's another one. There's another one. Oh boy. How do I just go over it? Yeah, I'm like slipping and sliding all over the place.
Oh. And now you're out of bounds. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Let's see what's way outside the wall. Go in the other direction. Oh, there you go.
All of this because I went inside of a sofa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is like ice skating or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that sound. How many of these things do I have to get?
I've already forgotten.
It didn't say, just said get all of them. Ooh.
You know what? If this is what sex with a sofa was like, I might understand JD Vance a little more.
That was good. That was so topical. So topical. I like how he's kind of when he's dancing. He's kind of a cool guy, this Poltergeist.
Yeah, he looks like Fonzie.
A little bit. Okay, so now I'm in the TV. And I jump back out again. Is it game over? No.
Oh, Jugsy asked, what is the game?
Oh, sorry, Jugsy. The game is called Haunting, starring Poltergeist. I don't know anything else about it. I know that you can like jump in to things when you see that little blue. But I don't know. What is that? What is this? What is that? See, when you get close to something, there's a little, so like they're people, and you, I think, are supposed to scare them. It's also
Are we
tricky
stuck?
because Sega Genesis has 6 face keys, and I don't know. So it's a lot of buttons to push to figure out what you're supposed to do. But A jumps you into the thing, B does nothing, C does nothing, X, Y, Z, left, right, down. I have a little meter of green. And then I come back out again. I'm assuming there's like people that I'm supposed to scare.
I really like the design on the house here. It reminds me of The Sims.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the game looks like $1 million. For sure. Whoop. What's that? What am I doing? Okay.
You're expending your green juice. Apparently.
Yeah, I know. I need more green juice. How does one get the green juice? I'm assuming I'm almost out.
Oh, and it does go away over time as well.
Yeah, just by itself even. So when I run out, like I just did, is this when I have to go back and do this thing again?
That's strange. Like it doesn't let you quote unquote enter the objects until you're already out of juice.
I'm assuming that like when you see the people and you scare them, you get more of the juice.
That's what I would think. That would be logical.
I'm assuming. Man, I wish I was just playing Space Marine right now. I pre-ordered the new Space Marine. I never pre-order games, and I got like the collector's edition because I'm so excited about it. I can't remember the last time I did that with a video game. I doubt I'll be streaming. That's a really good point, though. But I doubt I'll be streaming Space Marine 2 when it comes out, just because it's a modern game. There'll be lots of people streaming it, and I don't want to mess with my PS5 or anything for that kind of purpose. My whole deal is old games, and generally speaking, that's just what we're going to be doing. But I will be playing a massive amount of that game on my own time.
I'm almost done with BG3 at this point.
With what?
With Baldur's Gate 3, I'm almost to the end. Almost to the end.
That's the sort of game I can't play by myself. Because Freddie and I are both too jazzed about it. And we've played a few hours and had such a good time. But then, life happens and blah, blah, blah. And we haven't been able to pick it up again.
I mean, I've been trying to get my money's worth out of it, basically. Like, trying to extend it as long as I can.
I miss, I need more Dungeons & Dragons in my life. I miss Dungeons & Dragons so much. I haven't been, me and Freddie and a few people that Oldmin, we did this campaign that lasted like 5 years.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and when it ended, we were ready for it to end because it kind of started to feel like a slog after a while. But what am I doing? What is this game? What is it?
Yeah, doing? I would have guessed based on the first, minute of us playing this that each of these objects would have had a different little labyrinth for you to go through.
That's what it looked
like.
That's
what I guessed
from the beginning of the game too. Is that you can possess? Oh, here's Tony. He's here.
In the guitar?
No, there's a little kid at the bottom.
Oh, I
So
see, yeah.
how do I'm in the guitar. No, now I'm not.
Oh, he's going for it. He's going for it. There you go. Oh, well, interesting.
But I didn't do that. I'm over here.
Oh, no, Tony. Maybe if you jump into
Fear
it,
level low.
it gives you, like, or it turns the thing into a possessed object?
I need to scare him more. Fear level calm. That's not fear at all.
Mm-mm.
But what button does it? I'm pushing all of the buttons. Well, I just hit start. And I was walking away, and I'm almost out of green again. Ooh, there's green. That was nothing. That was not helpful. I think the lesson to learn is, what do the different colors mean? Because like that's
when you press
yellow.
I'm sorry.
Purple.
When you press start, I saw a bunch of faces. Does it show you where they are in the house? Yes, it does. So you're like,
yeah,
you're close to all
V
of them.
there is Vito. I'm assuming the dad. T is Tony. M is Mimi. F is Flo. Flo seems delightful. But what do I do? I'm gonna run out of green again. We're gonna do this again. We're gonna keep trying. I'm really, I like this game. Seems really great. We gotta figure it out. But let's get back into the house, and then we'll pause and we'll do another question.
Sounds good.
Jugsy says, I'm excited too, but games don't sell out, so I'll just buy it day one. Yeah, the reason I got I pre-ordered Space Marine 2 is because this is how they get you, of course. Is there's like some really inconsequential content that you get when you pre-order the collector's edition. Like you get some extra armor or a chain sword or something. I don't even remember what it is. But you know, like this is like, you know, like waiting in line to go see a movie or to like buy the new iPhone or whatever. Like you don't need to do that. Nobody needs to do that, but it's kind of like part of the experience. And I just felt like getting real jazzed about a game in advance. So I did. But I'm still, from time to time playing we played it on the stream a few times, the original Space Marine on the Xbox 360 and having a great time. That's a very, very good game. And so I'm excited about having a more modern version of that experience. So I'm super jazzed about it. Oh, I'm missing one. At least they give you an arrow. If they didn't give you an arrow to where the green stuff was that you were missing, I just wouldn't play this game. I would have given up. Except now, there we go. Jumping up there is not easy.
Yeah, the physics in this seems quite frustrating.
Okay, well, you can die. Ouch, that dungeon is nasty, man. Like, all I wanted was some ecto, you know? No need for him to go ballistic on me, whoever they are. Oh well, see you next time. Oh, Poltergeist, you're the coolest.
He's such a rad dude.
Well, I don't feel bad about having to start over because we did literally nothing.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to watch the whole credits now?
I don't know. But I'm going to turn the volume down on that and I'm going to go back to this because we're going to do another question.
Okay.
I'm not giving up on this yet. I want this game to be good. So we'll do our best. I pasted this one into my little note a long time. Oh, I remember this one now. This is an interesting and bizarre dilemma this person has.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a 43-year-old guy. My father is in his 70s, and he had a health scare recently. He's doing all right now, but he wanted to update his will and make some funerary plans. Dealing with the inheritance stuff was unpleasant, but I suppose normal in a way. But when it came to what he wanted done with his body after he passes, I'm not sure what to do. He doesn't want to be buried or cremated or have his body donated for scientific or medical purposes. No. What he wants is to be decapitated, his skull cleaned out, and have the rest of his remains processed into two memorial diamonds. He wants those diamonds stuck into his empty eye sockets and to be put on the mantelpiece of my home so he can watch his grandkids and any other descendants that might live there. He's done all the homework on this too, found companies for the various sorts of processing, and double checked with an attorney to make sure that this is legal where we live. It unfortunately is. I don't think it would be a good thing for my family to look up in the living room and go, "Yep, there's my old man watching us from beyond the grave." I'm honestly considering just telling him I do it, and then when he's gone, simply having him cremated. He'll never know the difference, right? But that does feel wrong, and I think I do owe him enough to honestly say I can't honor that wish. What can I do here? I want to go on the
Yeah,
record
that
to
is kind of
say
tough.
I love all of this, and I would absolutely do that, but I understand where someone else might not want to.
Yeah,
But I think
I
that's
saw this
super
pop up in
fucking
my feed.
badass. Oh,
I
you
saw this
did?
pop up in my feed, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't actually click on it. So it's interesting to hear the whole story here.
What's your take, Oldman? You got a take? And as always, there's not a lot of people watching from home right now, but love to hear anybody that has input on this. Please share. Please share in the chat if you're able to. This one is a doozy.
Yeah, I mean, he says that it would be wrong for him to tell his dad, okay, sure, we'll do your crazy ass plan, and then not do it. I don't think that's very wrong at all. And I do understand where he's coming from when he says that he feels like he owes it to his old man to be honest with him about that. And that is valid too. But I really don't think he would be doing much wrong by if this is a guy who's like super committed to it and won't shut up about it, and that's what he wants. I really don't think it would be that bad for him to just say it to get along with his dad for now, and then not do it later because his dad won't be there, like he said.
Yeah, he has a point in that when you're dead, you're dead. And when you're dead, you don't really have a say in what happens anymore because you're dead. I
Yes.
He definitely could. That is an option to say, yeah, I'm totally cool with that, Dad. Let's do it. And then when his dad's actually gone, to not do it. I
Yeah,
do
it wouldn't
think
be the worst.
it wouldn't be the worst. I don't like that myself. That makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
It
understand.
does seem like from the question, the way the question ends, is um, I'm not sure that he's had the conversation yet about I don't think I can honor that. I think you should try to do
Mm-hmm.
that first and see how it goes. If his dad's like absolutely not, I'm not even interested in hearing a debate about it. This is what you're gonna do, and this is what you're gonna do. Then maybe then he has the right to say, yeah, sure, Dad, whatever, and then not do it. But I think he at least owes it to himself. Maybe he owes it to his dad, but he owes it more to himself to try to have the conversation first to be like, I'm not really comfortable with this. Um,
Yeah.
I do know, at least anecdotally, that sometimes theater companies will take donations of actual human skulls, like to use as a prop. Like famously, the skull that Hamlet holds when he gives his last poor Uric, I knew him a ratio speech, the to be or not to
Mm-hmm.
be speech. That sometimes that's a real human skull because someone's bequeathed their skull to the theater.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that happens often, and I'm sure there's lots of places where that's against the law. But maybe that's something else. Like if he really wants to do something cool with his skull, that's another option.
Mhm.
If he enjoys the theater of at least. I heard somewhere this is also one of those things that's probably not true. But in the the actual like Disneyland, the first Disneyland in California, that when you go through Pirates of the Caribbean, you see a lot of human remains, and that when
Mhm.
they were building that, like in the '60s or maybe the '50s, I think the '60s, that it was easier to just get real human remains and use them in an amusement park, and they did. And then as the times changed and the laws changed, that they replaced most of them with fakes, but no one was 100% sure which was which anymore. And so there
Mhm.
may be some actual real human remains still in Pirates of the Caribbean in Anaheim.
I feel like I want to talk to this guy's dad and give the dad some advice because this is an interesting interpersonal question. But at the same time, what is the motivation behind this desire of the dad?
Yeah.
And the motivation that like seems most logical to me is that the dad wants to have some kind of immortality, wants to be there,
Yeah.
and wants to be involved with the family after he's gone. And that doesn't seem like a good attitude. Or, it's hard to judge that kind of thing. And the attitudes towards your own death, very difficult thing to judge in general. Judgment may not even be the right word. But like if this letter writer is going to have a conversation with his dad about this subject, then naturally the conversation is going to involve talking about why do you want this?
Yeah.
And if the answer is, something that is an unhealthy attachment to life, or wanting to be there long past the time that you literally won't be there, then maybe that is something else too. Like I don't know. Like uh, it's it's not that different in type than somebody wanting a headstone or for somebody to keep their cremains on the mantelpiece in
Yeah.
a traditional vessel.
Or even having
It's
like a big portrait like over the mantle or something of a person that's no longer around.
right. It's just a little bit more eccentric than that, and not as traditional.
Yeah.
Um, but like my attitude towards it would be, isn't this just? I wouldn't say this and if I was in the letter writer's shoes, but isn't this just you wanting a form of immortality that is impossible? Isn't that what that is?
Yeah. But, at the same time, what you ever hear the saying before, people really die twice. You die when you actually die, and then you die when the last person that knows who you were dies.
I've heard that.
And I think that there's a lot of people that understand that they can't really extend the first type of death that much, but they can certainly extend the second type quite a bit. And
Hmm.
so the idea of like, on your point that this is a type of immortality that this guy's dad wants, is he wants to be remembered by being
Hmm.
in this kind of grotesque, really intense display inside your house. And part of me gets that. Part of me respects
Yeah,
that.
me too.
But at the same
I
time,
understand
you
the
can't
motivation.
force somebody to do that if they don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
I
I,
get
I
the motivation.
absolutely, yeah. It's like having a headstone, but in your house.
Right. And honestly, now that I've mentioned it, having the cremains on your mantelpiece in like a vessel is kind of creepy too.
Yeah. Because it,
uh,
it pretends that it's not what it is. And the
yeah,
skull is honest. I think
I
that's why I like
guess.
it. The skull doesn't pretend to be anything else than what it is.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I mean,
maybe.
if it was up
Go
to
ahead.
me, if I was going to start my own cultural tradition, is that you'd have a line of skulls of everyone in your family on in your house somewhere, so you could go and remember them and see their names, and then that way, that second death when everyone forgets you ever existed happens so much later because you have this like family crypt, You know,
Mhm.
like
I don't
my
think one should be so afraid of the second death either. That would be, if we're gonna get real philosophical and weird about it, like
yeah,
that is something that's going to happen anyway too.
yeah,
Both of those things are forms of death, and both of them are things that people should come to terms with. That yes, you are going to be forgotten.
you're right.
Yes, it
I
is going to happen. But you're right. Like at the same time, it's your family, and of course, you want your family to remember you. So yeah,
yeah,
I get both motivations.
I I think that I'm super sensitive right now in my life to that second death when the last
Mhm.
person that remembers you dies, because my I'm second generation, and I'll in America, and
Mhm.
I'll be the when I'm gone will be the first time that the people in my family that came to the US will have that second death. And
Right.
or when my brother and sister and our cousins in our age group are gone. And that makes me really, really sad. And I know that happens unless you're Napoleon or Alexander the Great or fucking
Even they
Hitler.
will be forgotten.
They
Even
will
they
be
will be.
eventually, but I don't know. Let me tell you, if Alexander the Great hasn't been forgotten yet, yeah, I think it's a long time until he will be.
He does have a good run. He does have a
Yeah.
good run.
That was a long time ago. And I mean, the sun will explode someday and the earth will be destroyed and then none of it matters.
Mhm.
But I think that there's something even sadder about that second. Man, the show got heavy quick. There's something
I
even
know, right?
sadder about that second death than the first one, is when no one
I think so
remembers you
too.
anymore. Uh-huh. It's more
Okay,
permanent.
talking about Alexander the Great, I think he's probably already been forgotten as a person. He's a myth. He's not a person anymore. So can we really say that he hasn't been forgotten? Because
Touche,
maybe he
touche.
kind of has in a way. I don't know.
But I mean, there are
Completely off
people
topic, but
there are people that knew him, that were of his time and that knew him, who wrote about him, and their writing still exists.
that's true.
So how true that was, I don't know. But like the fact
Yeah.
that there were people that hung out with him and wrote about it, and we still have that writing, is
Hmm.
um is a big deal.
It would be a nice thought to me that Oldman would be known 1,000 years from now. That would be great. It's not going to happen. It would be. It's a nice thought to think about. But at the same time, like if Oldman is known 1,000 years from now, it's certainly going to be nothing close to the person that I am.
Yeah. Um that's fair. And the people that wrote about Alexander the Great in his lifetime had political motivation
Yeah.
to be dishonest about it. But also,
Hmm.
like the way that I remember my grandfather um, is probably, is very different from how my mother remembers him or how my sister
Sure.
remembers him. He treated me very different than he treated them. And so, like, this is one of the things I think you might have been there, Oldman, in our um, Star Trek club that we used to have, that I would like to bring back someday. We were
I
talking
would
about
like
just
that
like
too.
the nature of history, and how
Hmm.
even like these things that are so well documented, they were documented in their time, and we have all of that documentation now, is still probably not really what happened, because people have their own motivations, people have their own agendas. Human memory, even memory of what happened earlier today or yesterday, is inherently faulty. And so like
Hmm.
it's the what someone was really like, or what actually occurred on a specific point in history, is 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 all subjective. Nothing There's no such thing as an objective history.
Hmm. Yeah, I
And
guess I
that
just wanted to interrogate that duality of death that you mentioned earlier, the physical death and then the memory death,
Yeah,
because I haven't really thought about it a lot before. I'm kind of just going off the seat of my pants here, but yeah, I think that second death has a lot more nuance to it than just you are remembered versus you are not remembered.
yeah. It seems really clear to me that this guy's dad is more stressed out about the second death than the first death.
Mhm. That's
And
what it
that
seems like.
what he wants to do this because he wants to interrupt that second death as long as possible, which I
Yeah.
get. And I personally think the way that he wants to do that is interesting and beautiful. But I understand
Yes.
how I'm a creepy dude, and I think a lot of people wouldn't be wouldn't be into that. I think what the letter writer needs to do is they need to talk. They need to have a conversation with their dad saying, I really don't like this. Is there any way we can find some other memorial you're comfortable with? And
Mhm.
only if he says no should the letter writer think about being dishonest
Yeah,
about it.
I think that's right. I think that's right. Maybe the granddad is like a big goth, like one of the original goths, and he wants to make sure that his progeny and his
Yeah,
grandchildren
yeah.
end up like that too.
Or you know what you could do is you could do it. You could do the whole thing and get the skull with the diamonds in its eyes, and then maybe write like a really nice kind of like biography of your dad and put it all in a little box and just keep the
Yeah,
box.
not on the mantelpiece.
Yeah.
Somewhere the kids are not going to be seeing it every single day of their young lives.
And then if you get older and your opinion and relationship changes and your kids get older and you decide you want to do it, you could. Or maybe it just sits in a box in your
Mhm.
closet for however long, much longer you have, another 30 or 40 years. And then your grandkids who never knew your dad have to go clean out your closet when you're gone, and they find this box and they open it and they're surprised and confused and shocked and terrified probably. But then they read the document you put in there and you're like, oh, this was my granddad. He was a really weird dude. But I respect that, and now I have a memory about him, even though he's been gone for a long time, and I understand a little bit about him too. I actually really like that idea a lot, also.
Yeah, I get it. I'm not saying I don't get it because
Yeah,
I totally get the motivation, and perhaps there is a better way to go about your own physical death than this.
yeah,
If your family is involved, making demands on them other than you know cremation or burial.
yeah.
I get it. Like personally, like I really like the idea of the sky burial, the one where the birds eat you, and I also like the. There's been
I don't
people
like that
who.
only because I hate birds. Birds are filthy and gross.
Yeah, and then like the composting thing,
I like
that's been a thing
composting.
recently. Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like that's more my speed.
yeah. Um, I we talked about Judaism before. I like a lot of parts about a traditional Jewish burial and mourning
Hmm.
service. I'm biased because I grew up with that, but in Jewish tradition, there's no embalming. You get buried like usually within 48 hours of when you die. The casket you go in has can't have any metal in it. Everything has to go back into the earth. So like the casket is made with like wooden slots that go together because you can't nail them in because the nails don't go away. And at least in a time frame that would be meaningful. I like all of that a lot. I can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery because I have tattoos,
Hmm.
but I something close to that sounds nice for me. The most important thing though is I want when I'm gone, and I'm putting this out on the air so everyone knows, but everyone that's close to me also knows this. When I'm gone, what I want more than anything else is a 5-day music festival that is filmed and turned into a concert documentary called
No.
Jeremy's Rock and Roll Shiva. That's the most important thing I want when I die.
Well, now that I know that, I will be one of your advocates
Thank
when
you.
that happens.
Ah, doesn't need to be like a real big deal. You don't have to get like Scorsese to film it or whatever.
Well,
But
he's going to be gone before you are.
I mean, I hope so. Not that I hope
Yeah.
ill on Scorsese, just I hope that I live, to be old. Um, but the reason I say that is because one of the best concert documentaries of all time is the Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus, and I want that
Mm.
vibe, but I want it to be Shiva, and I want it to last for 5 days. I think that'd be rad.
I think that's a nice idea, and it's a lot nicer than Jeremy's skull on the mantelpiece.
No, well, now after reading this, I kind of want that too. I could donate my skull to a theater and be Uric skull for the rest of my life.
Now that I know that's an option,
oh,
that sounds great too. I get to be on stage, no stage fright whatsoever.
Nope. And you get to have a really important role in Hamlet, but you don't have any lines.
The most important scene, anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe not the most important role, but definitely the one that everybody knows about.
Everybody remembers. It's the only part of Hamlet most people know. I knew him, Horatio.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you know much more than I do, Jeremy.
A man of infinite jest. Okay. Let's give Haunting another shot and see if we can figure it out this time.
I'm going to go to Game FAQs.
Thank you.
What is it called again? Haunting the Poltergeist.
It's Haunting starring Poltergeist.
Haunting starring Poltergeist.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Oh, you need to bring the volume back up. Okay, well, no, this isn't the game. Is this the setup? Are we doing the setup now? Oh my god, are they eating the slime? Okay, I'm back.
Oh, there is very little information about this game.
Okay, here's Mimi. Okay, that jumped me out. Let's go into the fish tank. Oh,
wait.
So you don't have to be in the thing. You just go in, and then you can jump out. And when they walk by it later, it does something that scares them.
So are you like expending those juice points when you go in? Okay, that makes sense. Like you're possessing them or whatever.
But then what do I do now? Her fear level is high. Whoa! Am I controlling that? I'm almost out of juice, though.
But what's the goal here? Other than, yes, you scare them, but like, is there you scare them and then they leave the house, or you?
I'm assuming
you get their spirit.
Oh wait, she left all the green goo on the floor. That was almost nothing. Go. So you scare her, and she
it's like their fear
poops out the goo.
Yeah, the goo is the fear.
Yes.
Okay, well, the only thing I can find is like cheat codes.
Well, maybe we'll get to those later. So, is that going to do something? She definitely peed, but
A retro.
Ugh.
So, like, what is this character? It's like Bart Simpson.
Yes.
Edgy, early 90s, late 80s type of edginess.
Yes. He hasn't said don't have a cowman, but he hasn't not said it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little... So you have to scare them. You jump into the furniture or whatever, and then you leave. And they come back around, and something happens, and they get scared. And then they poop out the green stuff, and you get to pick it up. But it's like such a small amount.
Speaking of Beetlejuice, which you mentioned earlier, are you stoked on the new movie?
No. I mean, the original Beetlejuice is one of my faves. Um, I'm generally speaking, I'm for endless sequels if they're good. And like the last Ghostbusters movie I kind of liked. I didn't hate it. Um
I heard that it was good. I heard that it was
yeah,
good.
and the most recent one I haven't seen yet. The one where like everything's cold, I haven't seen that yet. But the one before that I didn't hate. I'm all about the franchise if the output is good. Um, but in this particular case, I mean, the first movie's so special and so unique um, and weird that I don't want another one.
I was
You
a
know what
big
I mean?
Ghostbusters, or I was a big Beetlejuice fan as a kid,
Yeah, me too. I
and
still am. That movie, I don't know the last time you saw it, but that movie is perfect. It holds up super well.
not that
Um,
recently, but yeah, it does. I've seen it as an adult, and it does hold up super well. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm also a little bit skeptical, um, but I'm willing to go see it. I'll probably go see it. I'm not a big sequels guy, although I agree with you. If it's good enough, then it's justified,
yeah.
and it's fine.
Like
But
the Planet of the Apes, the recent Planet of the Apes movies, I could see 100 of those because they've all been good. There hasn't been, like the Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Battle for the Planet of the Apes, yada yada yada. Those have all been terrific, and as they can keep making them forever as long as they keep being good. Um, but
But the
uh,
financial motives behind the sequels shit does bother me a lot. The fact that the reason we're seeing so many sequels is that it is seen by capitalists and big business people as a safer investment than an original
yeah,
property. That's terrible.
yeah, I agree with that, and like it's also super manipulative for people in at least my age demographic is because they know that I am gonna be powerless to not go see a Ghostbusters or a Beetlejuice movie because of nostalgia, and nostalgia is
Exactly. Yeah.
is dangerous in a million ways.
Hey, Andrew has a lot to say about that. He
Our
has the
friend
whole
Andrew,
song. Yeah, yeah. He has
yeah,
a whole
yeah, yeah.
song
No, you're
about the
yeah. I
dangers
know
of
the song you're
nostalgia.
talking about. Yeah,
It's one of his best ones in my opinion.
yeah. So I don't, for whatever reason, I think, my,
What the hell?
I'm starting to get the hang of this game and it is kind of fun. It's super weird. I just wished I was getting more green goo. I wish I was getting more juice for my squeeze.
Gonna keep my lips sealed on that one. um,
uh, but I gotta do this nonsense again. Um, for whatever reason, like I think that I agree that nostalgia is dangerous and it's gross that Hollywood executives have decided that it's less of a financial risk to make sequels than it is to do something original. I agree with all of that. But at the same time, like I want more of those stories. Like I want more Willow. I want more Ghostbusters. I want more Dungeons and Dragons and Mario and Zelda and everything else. And I think that it's possible that everybody benefits from that, that the studio executives, their stock price goes up because people like me go to see it. And I benefit because I get more of these stories that I always wanted more of, anyways. Um, but for whatever reason, Beetlejuice isn't a story. I love the original movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I think that movie's really influential in my kind of worldview and my aesthetic and my performance when I was a performer. Um, Michael Keaton is being a genius in that movie in a million ways. But I don't want more. I don't need more Beetlejuice. I'm happy with the Beetlejuice we got. That's not one that I feel like I need. To
I
get,
also feel
but I
like
want
I
more
was
of it.
reading some article. I'm sorry. I was reading some articles about it, and somebody was complaining about like the logical consistency of the Beetlejuice universe, and I feel like the Beetlejuice universe should not be logically
Yeah,
consistent. It should have contradictions that you can't understand within the movie itself.
yeah.
It should be like mysterious in
Well,
that way.
because the book that explains what being dead is like reads like stereo instructions. It should be confusing, and yeah, I agree. That's one of like the downsides to these kind of big franchises is that people get really focused on like canon, and
World
I'm
building.
yeah, and world building, and I like I love canon in my comics. I love canon in my Star Trek. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't need the world building everywhere. And
Not in Beetlejuice of all
Beetlejuice
places.
definitely doesn't need the world building. Maybe Ghostbusters does a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but Beetlejuice don't need it,
Mm-hmm.
um, for sure. So maybe there's something I'm missing. Like her fear level gets very high, and then maybe I should be doing something else to get more of the goo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've only been casually watching this while talking to you, but it seems like you try to get her fear level as high as
Oh,
possible. She drops the goo. It might be, maybe it's possible for something else to happen if you get up to a certain limit. I don't know.
maybe we should try to find another person. I think Flo's over here.
Why
Excuse
is
me,
this
Flo.
family so Italian? By the way,
I don't know.
Vito and Flo.
Mm-hmm.
That
This game just looks like $1,000,000 though.
it does. It does. They put so much into it.
Yeah, and like when there was the big battle between the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, I was definitely a Super Nintendo person. Sega Genesis games look better than Super Nintendo games do. I hate to admit it.
They do. They do. Yeah, I never had a Genesis myself. My grandma bought one for me and the cousins, and I loved that when I was able to play it. But I definitely played a lot more Super Nintendo.
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna do this for a little bit longer. I think we're probably gonna run out of goo soon, and when we do,
What?
this is so okay. Give me that green goo, lady. Poop out some green goo.
Yeah, let it flow.
Ew. Gross. Can I? Oh, no. Okay. I don't feel like doing this part again. Pause. It's also
It's the same dungeon every time.
and I can't pause. It is. You just go from one end back to the other. It's so weird. There's a couple vintage video game guys on YouTube that they'll do videos like these are the best games on this system, and I watch those videos and then I'm like, which games are reasonably priced on eBay? I'll go buy all of them, and this was one of those games.
I watch some of those channels as well.
Yeah.
This is completely unrelated to anything. Are you a fan of Big Joel? Do you know Big Joel?
I don't know Big Joel.
He's got a great YouTube channel.
What kind of content?
I was watching. He does a lot of like media analysis, and it does have like a fairly political aspect to it. But he's not like one of those people who rants about politics. He really weaves it into like the one that I watched earlier was about this show by Dr. Phil from like the mid 2000s, where it was called House of Hatred, and it was a show where the concept was we're going to get a white supremacist, a black lady, a fat person and a person who hates fat people, and a gay person and a person who hates gay people, and put them in a house together. And like, so he did like a little thing. Like, who would even think about this show that many years later? But he did like a whole thing, like a whole little analysis, like 20-30 minutes, talking about why this was a bad idea, why it was so ridiculous, and why it was also kind of funny at the same time. And but he always has like really good
Big.
he has
What's
good
his
stuff.
name? Big Joel.
Big Joel. Yeah,
Big
Big
Joel.
Joel.
I'll look it up. That sounds amazing. Um,
Hmm.
oh man, Dr. Phil's a real piece of shit, in my opinion.
If I remember right, Big Joel did like a series of videos right when Dr. Phil retired, just to like show how terrible he was over the course of his career. Don't
Um,
know why Big Joel had this be in his bonnet, but
the in oh, she left. She boo booed. All right, well that's one
Flo's
person down.
gone.
That's one person down. Look at that, she's gone.
All right, so that is the goal, is to get them
Yeah,
to leave the house.
get them to leave. I'm gonna give this a little break. The most I've ever broken character on stage, and keep in mind that I'm 45. I with a couple long breaks here and there, but never more than a few years. I've been on doing something or another on stage since I was 11. The most I've ever broken character on stage is during a church night show where Landon's character, the plot was that he hated Dr. Phil. And he said, I had no idea this line was coming. He said, you can't spell Dr. Phil without almost spelling cunt twice. And
I think I remember this show. I
I
think I do.
died. I had to turn around. I think I had to just sit on the stage. I was laughing so hard. That was a good time.
I
I
was
don't
telling the Christian lady that I went on a date with about church night. Maybe that's why it didn't work out.
maybe there are lots of church going people that go to church every Sunday that love church night though.
I know that. That's what I said to her. I said to her, I think you would have liked this. I'm just kidding. I know that's not why it was. We weren't compatible. That's
Yeah,
all.
that's cool. I have a really good friend, one of my few friends I've maintained at least some kind of friendship with from high school. Is very devoutly Christian, and but
Hmm.
like I'm not an expert on anything, but seems to me to be one of the few people I've ever met that really is invested in kindness and forgiveness and empathy to everybody, no matter what. And she's one of the kindest and strongest and most interesting and bravest people that I know. And
Yeah,
is also like very much invested in her spiritual life.
yeah. There are good people who love Jesus and follow through with the best aspects of what it says in that book.
Yeah, she
That
might be the only
exists.
person like that I've ever met before, but I'm sure they're out there. Okay, let's do another
Yeah, they do
question.
exist. Okay.
I'm married to a husband who is almost older. Oh, hang on a second. I'm going to give a little content warning. We acknowledge the existence of sex on the advice stream. If you're made uncomfortable by the acknowledgement of the existence of sex, this might not be the show for you to be watching right now. But the question I am about to read deals with biology and sex in a very direct and frank way, and yada, yada, yada. If you don't like it, this would be a good time to go watch something else. 3 people that are watching this show. Okay. I'm married to a husband who's almost older than me by 17 years. I am 32 and he is 49. 10 years have passed since our marriage and we have 2 kids. Our sex life was fine for the first 6 years, 6 of their 10 years together. However, things changed drastically after that. He cannot satisfy me sexually. His erection falls very quickly in a minute. All of our medical investigations and counseling ended with 0 results. He even told me that I could fulfill my sexual desires with my trusted friends, for which I have refused strongly. But something unexpected happened overnight. I was sent for a 7-day training in the far city by my office. I don't know what that means. Far city. There I met a man who is our company staff in the city office. We were preparing the next day's presentations until late at night. One thing led to another, and we ended up having sex. I have never experienced such great and rigorous sex in my life. We enjoyed each other for the remaining 6 nights as well. I didn't tell my husband, but now the lust for sex is killing me. I even have the guy's number, but I'm confused. I don't want to leave my husband, but at the same time, I desperately need sex. Where do I go from here?
Oof.
The first time I read this, I was like, but he gave her the opportunity. He said he was okay with opening the marriage so she could sleep with other people. But then I went back and read it again, and it says, with my trusted friends. So this is cheating, even though he gave her an opportunity to be open. That opportunity was very specific and limited, and she denied it. So she cheated on him. I think it's important for us to start there. Cheating is anything that goes outside of the agreed upon terms of a person's relationship. If he said she could sleep with whoever she wanted to, this wouldn't be cheating, but that's not what he said. And also, she said she wasn't going to do it regardless, and then she did. So I think my opinion here is that she needs to come clean and tell him what happened. And she needs to ask him for forgiveness. And then she needs to deal with that first. And hopefully he's understanding. It seems like he might be, because he understands the idea of her going outside of their marriage for sexual satisfaction. So maybe he'll be cool with it, maybe he won't. But the advice, at least that I always want to give to people that have cheated, is you have to start by telling your partner that you cheated. And then you need to move from there. I mean, I guess the questions I have is, why, what's this trusted friends thing? Why was he okay with that? And why wasn't she okay with it? That seems like a really, I mean, typically speaking, in my experience, the people that open their marriage to outside sexual partners don't want, that's usually what they say is off limits, is your friends. So um, that's an unusual specificity about what he was comfortable with.
Yeah.
But
I think it's interesting. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. You have more to
I
say.
think that beyond anything else, like she was sexually unfulfilled. She had a very sexually fulfilling experience. She wants more of that. Obviously, yes, that makes sense. That's how anyone would react in this situation. But she screwed up, and she needs to make amends for what she's done before she can try to find how she's going to achieve that level of satisfaction again in the future.
Mhm. Uh, I think it's interesting that your first thought was about the limits that they've set in terms of like what they've talked about it, opening it up. That wasn't my first thought at all. Like it is a very good point, and it is very important to be open and honest about that kind of thing. But like, my mind didn't immediately go to, well, what are the contractual terms of what they have said with their voices is going to be okay? Because as both of us know, just because somebody says that doesn't mean it is going to be okay.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
there are a
point.
lot of instances where people who started out as monogamous open their relationships, are completely honest about what they think they're going to be comfortable with, and then things go sideways.
Yeah,
Like that is a super common situation.
you're
So so
right, and
so yeah,
I guess my focus on the details of what they agreed to and what they didn't is the resolution for those two things is different. That if
yeah,
someone says you're allowed to go sleep with your friends, and then that person goes to sleep with their friends and like, oh my gosh, the reality of this is very different from what I thought it was going to be. I don't want you to do that anymore. That the way that you get back in alignment, the way that you repair that rift is really different than if you
yeah,
say you're only allowed to sleep with your friends and they go and sleep with a stranger, and now they
right.
have to make amends for that. Like I think that delineation is very important.
Yeah, it is important. I'm not saying that you were wrong to jump to that. I just think it's interesting that like we had very different initial thoughts about
Yeah.
it. And like as far as how to deal with this situation, God, I don't know. I don't think there's enough details really about what's going on there to like even offer advice other than what you said, which is, yeah, come clean about it, and talk about it. But part of the letter talks about they have explored their medical options and this guy can't get it up. There's a lot of medicines you can do to get
Yeah,
that
that's another. I mean,
fixed.
maybe he's got some underlying health issues where he can't take
Yeah,
Viagra or whatever.
right.
But
Uh,
I mean, I think especially when you look at marriages that have these big age gaps, so this is probably a really common thing. That she's 32, and at least it's my understanding that that's the beginning of kind of the sexual peak for women, and he's 49, which people say at least is the beginning of the decline for men.
mhm.
I don't know how much of any of that is true, but that's a fundamental rift and kind of an expected one for relationships. If it's not when he's 49, then when he's 59 and she's only 42. Um, that's going to be a thing that happens sooner or later. And I think that they're this is one of the reasons why people invented open marriages, is because everything else is great and you want to stay married to that person and you want to invest in the relationship, but just the sexual piece isn't working out, so you go and you can have sex with other people. I just, for a little bit of oversharing for me, my current relationship is not and has never been actually open, but I have a lot of experience with open relationships at previous stages in my life. And these types of conversations and negotiations about what's allowed and what isn't is an essential part of that process. And
Yes.
he proposed something that seemed to be working for him, although I think it's a really unusual caveat to say you can only sleep with your friends. Um,
Yeah,
and
it
she
doesn't
did,
sound to me like they've thought it out or that they've
yeah.
really talked about it to a large extent. Like it might have been something that he said at some point, but it doesn't sound like it was a long conversation where they really
Mm-mm.
considered what that means.
Yeah. And that conversation needs to be a back and forth. One person needs to start by saying, this is what I'm okay with. And the other person needs to come back to say, actually, that's not going to work for me. What if we do this? And the other, this is like we were just talking about how the successful to the secret to, not the secret, but the key to a successful long-term relationship is collaboration. That
Mm-hmm.
he's only comfortable with her sleeping with her trusted friends, which once again is very strange to me that that would be the line someone draws. And she didn't want to
Yeah.
sleep with any of her friends. And so was that it? Did they continue? Did she say, actually, no, but what if, I don't know, I only sleep with people that are out of town, so you don't have to worry about having awkward interactions with them or whatever. Then like that's something to work on. But she can't move forward with this in any way until she acknowledges that she's betrayed those parameters. And maybe when she comes back to say, hey, look, I did this thing with this guy at work when I was out of town. I feel really terrible about it. I'm so sorry. And then maybe he says, now that it's happened, I don't care. Like, you seem happy, or I'm glad you're happy. You got something that you felt really strongly you needed. And you are relaxed. You seem happy. There's less resentment or tension or whatever. That's great. Give this guy a call. Go, I'll take the kids, next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Go visit him for the weekend, and then when you come back, I'll go have a weekend and I'll do something that I want to do or whatever. Like that seems
It
like
didn't. Sorry, it didn't sound to me from the letter that she was sorry at all. She sounded like she's much more concerned about getting her sexual needs met and had no guilt about this. That's what it sounded like. But maybe I missed it. Maybe I skipped
yeah.
over
I
it.
mean, I don't know if it's clear one way or the other. She says that she's confused because she doesn't want to leave her husband, but I mean I I don't know. That's a good point. It's not clear from the the letter how she actually feels about it, except
Yeah,
that she wants these two things at the same time.
right. And I'm sorry to say this, and I kind of feel weird about saying this, but I don't like the fact that she just described it as we ended up sleeping together on a work trip. Oopsie daisy, so easy to happen, not something I could have prevented. Like, I don't want to judge somebody who's in a sexless marriage and is not getting their needs met too harshly, but like, definitely minimizing what happened there as
Yeah.
far as the phrasing goes.
At least minimizing her responsibility.
Yeah, yeah, like
No,
it was
those are
just a
all
plum
really
plum
good
accident,
points.
fell over, and it happened. That's
And
not how it works.
yeah, and putting on my radical empathy hat for a minute, I I'd imagine that maybe she's at a point where she's reeling from this because she
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize how much better she would feel if she had those needs met, that she's
Right.
having a hard time feeling bad about it right now, which also
Yeah.
I part of me can understand that. At least
Yeah,
part of me can
part of me
respect
can
it if
too.
not understand it. Yeah.
I that's why I said like I don't want to judge too harshly because like being in a sexless marriage is awful and it can be really difficult and warp your mind in all kinds of different ways. Uh, but yeah, like I definitely didn't get the sense that she didn't sound conflicted about what happened, and
Yeah.
that's fine. Maybe she shouldn't be. I don't know all the circumstances. We only have a very small slice of this person's life, so it's hard to make that kind of judgment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm saying, oh, bad woman who did bad thing. That's the end of the story because that's not how I feel. But
Um yeah, I'm with you on all of that. And like I one of the things that's really challenging for me that I spend a lot of time talking to my therapist about is this idea that you can feel two very different feelings at the same time. You can
mhm,
feel happy and guilty. You can feel
yes,
remorseful and proud or whatever, all at once. And that's a really, really hard thing to come to terms with. That's a hard thing, at least for me, and I'm imagining for a lot of other people too, to kind of process is I did something I'm not happy about and I feel bad about it, but at the same time I'm happy that I did it. Like
mhm,
that's rough. But that's something all of our brains are capable of doing that, and we probably do it a lot more than most people realize they're doing.
mhm. Yeah, and navigating wanting two different incompatible things or possibly incompatible things
Yeah,
romantically, sexually, etc., is also very difficult.
yeah. The important piece of the puzzle here, though, where she needs to start is she has to be honest with him that happened. And if she's not sorry, if she doesn't feel bad, then she shouldn't apologize and say that she's sorry. But he
Right.
needs to know, he has a right to know, and she won't know how to move forward until she has that conversation. I would hope that they can find a way to move forward where they can both have all of the emotional and structural and whatever other reasons people get married and stay married, financial and parental, and all the other benefits of staying together. And she can just go off and do this one thing that she needs to do with other people, and maybe with this one particular guy, even. I would hope that there's a way that they can make that happen. And it's certainly possible, but she's never going to know until she tells him.
Yeah, and this is not a good start to that.
Mm-mm. Yep. Um, boy. Well, it's 20 till. I got one more question that is also about cheating, but in a totally different way. Should we do one more question and then wrap it up for the night?
Sounds good.
I'm into Haunting starring Poltergeist. I really am. But I'll play that more on my own. But that's a very weird and fun game. Okay, here is the last question, also about cheating, but once again, in a very, very different way.
I'm going to head upstairs, but I can still hear you. So go ahead and
Okay.
read the question. I'll be back in like 30 seconds.
A bit over a month ago, my boyfriend of 6 years, Mark with a K, not that that matters, came home from a business trip looking crestfallen. I asked what was wrong, and he said that he had a one night stand while he was away with a woman he just met in Chicago. I guess Chicago's relevant for this. I was stunned, but I wasn't angry. At first, I thought I was just too surprised by it for any of the rage to get through. But like I said, it's been over a month now, and I still don't feel angry about it. I feel like I should be angry about it, though. We've talked about it a few times, and the closest he's been able to come up with an answer as to why he did it is that they had just signed a big deal, and ooh, and he was at a bar to celebrate, and was just caught up in exuberant. So when one of the local ladies flirted with him, he flirted back. Not a great look in an exclusive relationship, but I can't seem to get worked up about it. Worse, he keeps acting like the shoe is about to drop. I think that should be the other shoe is about to drop. And he's been walking on eggshells the entire time. It's honestly a bit tiring at this point, and I'd like to just go back to the boyfriend I had before. I tried bringing it up once, and he didn't seem to get it, and I'm not sure where to go from here. Um, Love your take on this one too, Oldman, but this is in a kind of like a weird reverse kind of situation.
That's what I was exactly thinking. It is kind of a reverse situation.
Yeah.
And not because the genders are swapped.
Yeah. I mean, first off, do you have a take on this? If you want to think about it while I talk, that's fine too, but I always want to start with, I'm always interested in what you're going to say. I think on a lot of these types of relationship and like specifically sexual stuff, I think you and I often have different takes. I'm always interested in yours.
Sure. I mean, like, definitely this situation is a much more rosy possible future than the last one.
Yeah.
She doesn't care. Like, she's just a little worried because her boyfriend is being weird about it.
Yeah.
And, she's much more and she suspects that there's another
bad.
shoe.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she doesn't even care that he cheated. She's just tired of him, like, harping on his own maybe guilt, maybe just different behavior afterwards, which is if somebody's going to open their relationship, if that's how she feels about it, that is a better starting point than the last.
I think the lesson here is people, for whatever reason, biology or upbringing or culture or whatever, people have different views about what they're comfortable with their partner doing with other people in a relationship. And that's why it's important that everybody that's in a serious relationship sit down and have a conversation about what counts as cheating and what doesn't. We talked about that, I think, a couple weeks ago. I'm just bringing it up again now. What counts as cheating isn't the same for everybody. And she doesn't seem to care. I feel like there's part of this, at least maybe I'm reading too in between the lines here, where she's kind of happy for him that he signed this big deal. He was caught up in the excitement of the moment, and he got lucky. Like, that's a great thing to happen for someone you care about, depending on, your feelings about how close the relationship should be. I think she needs to have a conversation with him to say, look, I don't love that you did it, but I honestly don't care, and I want to just move on. If there's a situation, she sounds like, the only thing I was going to say is maybe to continue to say, if there's a situation you find yourself in where you have the opportunity to sleep with someone else, call me first and we can talk about it. We can decide if it's okay to do then or not. This particular time, it really wasn't, but ultimately I'm not that upset about it. And I just let's just move on. Like, I don't care that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The two things that jump out at me from this letter are the one that I already mentioned. And also, like, she seems kind of upset at herself that she's not mad.
Yeah.
Which is just a sign that she has a little bit of cognitive dissonance about what she's been taught her whole life. Like all of us have.
Yeah.
About relationships, and also her own feeling that she doesn't give a crap about it.
Yeah.
Like, and that is something obviously that the advice would be: you are fine not to give a crap about it. That's totally your prerogative, and you should not be. I mean, it's understandable that she's so caught up about it and having some difficulty adjusting, but like ultimately the end of that should be, I'm okay with me not caring if my partner does something like this.
Yeah.
But also, like you were saying, they need to set up something much more explicit.
Yeah.
Like, not explicit in that way, but the other way.
Oh, I mean, in both ways, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those times where people not questioning and just kind of accepting societal expectations causes so much hurt and confusion and suffering with people because they don't think about it. They're just like they just they take it for granted and they don't question it in any way. And now her boyfriend is beating himself up because he feels like he did this horrific transgression, and in the context of their relationship, he did not. And she needs to get over that. She needs to accept the fact that and also, once again, maybe going too far to read in between the lines, maybe she's got some polyamorous tendencies, so she can imagine how she'd be fine sleeping with other people. So it doesn't matter if he does. They need to have that conversation, and she needs to let go of what of the expectation she's putting on herself about how she's supposed to feel about non-monogamy. Once
Mm-hmm.
again, there's nothing wrong with monogamy or non-monogamy. People are different. Some people are comfortable with more, some people are comfortable with less. I think if anyone watching this is at home, you need to decide what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with now. And that, not that that can't change, because it does over time for everybody, and you need to communicate that with your partner. And people don't do that. There's some people that think that their partner looking at porn is cheating, and there's other people that think that their partner going home with someone and having sex with a person in Chicago isn't cheating. There's a spectrum here. There's room for everybody, and everybody's different in this regard. And
But only in Chicago.
but
Only in
only in
Chicago.
Chicago. Um, we've all succumbed to native Chicagoans in the past. At least I have. Uh, so um, anyways, I think the interesting thing about this question, and the thing that I think is important to hit home, is don't take the parameters of your relationship for granted. Nobody should. Figure out what you're comfortable with and what you're not. Have that conversation with your partner, and make sure it is an ongoing conversation, because things change and people change. And the last thing you want to do is to be beating yourself up over not being hurt by something that you think you're supposed to be hurt at, and then having your partner be in this weird limbo where he's terrified that you're going to dump him or scream at him or something because of what he did, when you're not going to. Accept how you
Yeah.
feel and make sure you communicate it to him, and do it as soon as possible.
I'm trying to, in my own mind right now, like tease out the difference between the last question and this one, because I really want to avoid um, thinking, oh, and this is not what I'm thinking, but I want to figure out why I feel differently. The last one was a woman who cheated on her husband. This one is a husband who cheated on the
Or
woman, and so
boyfriend,
like
but
it
with
would be really bad for me to like say, oh, the last one was so bad and this one's fine and wonderful, and that so. But what I think maybe there are some like really subtle context cues in both the letters, like about the amount of communication that's going on,
yeah.
and the feeling, like how much have they talked about it in the past? They haven't really in this one. But like I don't know. What would your take be on that? Your
I mean,
instant
I
take?
think the main difference is in the second question. We know how the person that was cheated on feels because they wrote the letter. And the way that they feel is they don't mind. They're fine with
Yes,
it.
that is so key. You're so
And
right.
in the first question, we don't know how the person that was cheated on feels because the cheater wrote in the question. And
Yeah.
also, they haven't had a conversation with their partner about what they did, at least not before they wrote in. I think that's the biggest difference. Is one The first one, they're both about a lack of communication,
Hmm.
but one, we know how the hypothetically wronged person feels in the second question, and the
Yeah.
way that they feel is they weren't wronged because they understand and they're cool with it, and they just want to, like, there's not even anything to repair. They just want to
Hmm.
get back to relationship. They need to find a way to communicate to their boyfriend that uh their feelings about monogamy aren't as strict as the societal expectation on
Yeah.
monogamy. And
I think that is really the central thing. And if I'm going to add one more thing
yeah,
to
please.
it, it would just be that in the last one, we got the background that there had been like an issue with intimacy for a long time. And in this one, no sign of that.
Yeah. Um, at least not anything that was shared.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, to me, that's the biggest difference is the wronged person is the speaker in the second
Yeah.
question, and they're
Absolutely.
very clear to say that they're cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
This is to me is one of the exciting things about the times we live in is that there's a lot of these kind of societal expectations that people aren't accustomed to questioning that, and I'm going to sound like an old person when I say younger people than me are questioning a lot these days, and that gives me a lot of hope for the future. Is that there? Like when I was a kid, it was a big deal for someone to come out as being gay. That was a massive
Mm-hmm.
deal. I didn't know. I knew a couple gay kids in high school. I went to performing arts high school, so I probably knew more than most other kids my age did at the time. I didn't know or really understand what trans was at the time. There weren't trans identity wasn't something that was in the broader culture in those days. Um, and also the idea of bisexuality also wasn't something that existed in those days. And I feel like today that there's so much less of a pressure to be gay or straight that people can that because that's not how sexuality works. People can slide back and forth in this spectrum, and I wish that had existed more when I was younger instead of having these really hard limits. That was a massive, massive deal if you could acknowledge to the
Mm-hmm.
people around you that you fell anywhere outside of that identity of being straight. Um, the idea of of monogamy, that you meet someone, you get married, that connection sexually can only exist between the two of you. You have kids, you grow old, you die. If you cheat, you get divorced, you go marry somebody else, and then that's it. And that's at least for a lot of people, that's not how they identify. That's not the type of model for a relationship that exists for them. And I not that monogamy, like I am currently in a monogamous relationship, not that that's bad, just that there are other ways to live your life, and people never used to even be able to consider those in ways that I
Mm-hmm.
think are generally, at least in big cities and urban centers, are pretty accepted these days.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit younger than you, a slightly different generation, and it was still a big deal when I was coming up for somebody to come out of the closet.
Yeah.
And maybe not as big a deal as it was when you were growing up, but still a big deal. And it's definitely not like that anymore for young people.
Yeah, and I mean it is in lots of the world. It is
Right,
in
right.
lots of places in the United States still, unfortunately. But those
Yeah,
those places where that's not acceptable are getting smaller and smaller
yeah,
all the time. And while it certainly seems like a lot of people with political power want to reverse that trend, I'm hopeful that they will fail in that endeavor.
yeah. And you know what? I say that right now, but like the thing that I just remembered that would counter that point that I just made was talking to a couple of my neighbors a couple of years ago. They were talking about, oh well, there's this girl that goes to school with my daughter, and she was kissing her girlfriend at school, and isn't that kind of icky and gross? And I was trying to tell these two people, these two ladies, well, how is that any different from some middle schooler kissing her boyfriend? Like, why is that so much worse for you? It's the
Yeah.
same thing. uh, and they got real uncomfortable.
Oh. I mean, were these old people, like older?
No, they were like a year or two younger than me,
Oh wow. All
but
right.
they had
Well,
kids. So
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of injected myself into that conversation, but I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
keep quiet because I saw the double standard.
Um, and that's, like one of the things that's so easy to forget for those of us in America, and for the people, and family members I have outside of America, that's almost impossible for them to get, is how like siloed different communities can be, like people in the suburbs or people in the city or people in the country, and then on top of that, different ethnic or racial or religious groups even inside of a big city. That there's so much, it's so easy to think about America as being split between whatever, liberal and conservative, or Democrat or Republican, or blue and red. Well, that's not really how it works. And like,
right, it's between the capitalists and the workers, Jeremy.
Yeah,
that's the real split.
That's what I was getting at. That's really the only division between people.
I couldn't help myself.
I 100% agree with you on that, Oldman. But like I read this the other day too. The first time that the red and blue electoral map, that Georgia's red and California's blue, the first time that was ever used was in the 2000. I think it was the 2000 election, the Bush v. Gore election. And that's become such a fundamental part of the way that we see the country, is there are states that are right-wing and there are states that are progressive. And that's not how it actually works. That there's big places, even in states like Georgia and Alabama or Texas, that are super progressive. And there's big parts of places like Pennsylvania or New York State that are super conservative. I just remembered the joke that I made when I've talked to friends and family members that aren't from America, is one of the hardest things to remember is there's big parts of Pennsylvania that are Alabama. And that's a really hard thing, even for those of us that live in America our entire lives. It's a really hard thing for us to remember, but it's true. It's not helpful to think about this state being like that and that state being like this. That is so much more complicated and nuanced than that. And that
they
that
call it
gives me a little-
Pennsyltucky.
Yeah,
Pennsyltucky.
And then there's places in Alabama or places in Georgia that are big modern cities. So I don't remember where I was going with that. Anyways, the
upstate New York can get real weird too. I know that upstate New York people can get real weird.
Yeah,
and real
like,
conservative.
have you read about the people in like Eastern Oregon that want to join Idaho? They want to separate from the state. I don't.
Losers.
I've never met anyone that wants to go visit Idaho, let alone make where they live part of the state. But anyways, I feel bad about that. If anyone from Idaho is watching, I'm sure Idaho's beautiful. And there's lots of wonderful and interesting people and exciting things to do there. I'm not just saying that. I mean that 100%.
Well, I'm going to go down on the record and say F Idaho. All you Idahoans who watch this, I don't care how you feel about that.
Well, with the 3 people watching right now, I doubt that any of them are from Idaho, but I don't want to turn anyone away at this point.
Fair.
All right, let's start to wrap it up. That was fun, Oldman. I guess the message there is the times we live in are more complicated than they used to be in good ways. And I feel like that's the goal of a society, is that we should continue to move into a more complex and less black and white and less, I don't know how else to say it, a more complicated future. Because complications mean, in a lot of ways, mean freedom. And the more open-minded we are about the way that relationships can work, or the way that gender works, or the way that sexuality works, the way that our bodies work, the way that a city or a town or a countryside can work, the more options we allow ourselves to have, the more free we can all be. And I wish that more people could see it that way. I certainly do.
Mm-hmm. As Rafi said, the more we get together, the happier we'll be.
That's beautiful. We'll leave it on that. Rafi, also after my time. This has been the Advice Stream. I'm your host, JeremyInternational. We were joined today, as we so often are, by Oldmin. Had a great time talking to you, Oldmin. If you'd like to leave us a question for the next episode of the Advice Stream, you can head on over to JeremyInternational.com. If you enjoyed the show and you want to go over and shoot me a couple bucks, I'm gonna take it and I'll use it to buy some other weird old video game that we'll play next time. We'll stay with the Sega Genesis back catalog for a little while, and then after that we'll move to something else. Super Nintendo, I don't know, TurboGrafx 16. We'll see. But thanks again, everyone, for coming to hang out today, and we will see you next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye.
Bye bye.